And there are suggestions by certain groups that the Lisbon Treaty that's up and coming will indeed enshrine a commitment to the removal of such barriers and to allow cheap food products from areas such as South America and other developing countries into Ireland and to become open.
The reform treaty is a separate issue. In the sense that the question that people have been asked about the EU reform treaty is, do you want to have your institutions, and by that I mean the Council of Ministers, the European Parliament and the European Commission, you want them to be sufficiently flexible to deal with a population of 500 million in 27 countries as distinct from 250 million in only 15 countries. But this protest here today is in respect of the World Trade Organization talks, in respect of which farmers have a legitimate concern and a legitimate anxiety about those talks which are due for discussion and probably decision in Geneva on the 19th of May.
Okay, it's just that some of the farmers have here expressed a concern that if Mr. Barroso and the European Union as a whole kind of goes in favour of allowing in these cheap food products from various areas, they will indeed go against the Lisbon Treaty because they feel it as a threat. Now, do you not see there as being any sort of link? Do you not see that the Lisbon Treaty would?
One of the points that I've made is that in respect of the Lisbon Treaty, people need to be given the information, and our job as politicians is to give them that information so that they're properly informed and make a decision. What we're not getting is the evidence from the Department of Agriculture about their assessment in respect of the proposals for the World Trade Organization talks that are on the table to 70% cut in tariffs, which the IFA say will lose 50,000 jobs and will be a loss of 4 billion to the Irish economy, and that's a very serious issue.
Okay, so you're concerned about the farmers' position now, but you don't see a link between it and the Lisbon Treaty?
Naturally enough, anybody is going to be concerned about the EU Reform Treaty, but I'd like to keep a divergence here. The Lisbon Treaty is a matter of dealing with the institutions of Europe and making them sufficiently flexible for the increased population. The World Trade Organization, of course, impacts on services and goods and manufacturing in the agri sector, and farmers have a legitimate right to be concerned about that. And that's why I'm now going on to Dublin Castle to talk to President Barroso about that very matter.
Okay, Mr. Gael, thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the more minor issues, but a very serious one for the farmers involved, is that the farmer groups have threatened to register a no vote and to encourage their members to register a no vote in protest at the current World Trade Organization talks, where EU Commissioner Peter Mandelson is negotiating the release or the allowing of food products from developing countries to be allowed into the EU with very much reduced tariffs. Now, other supporters of the Lisbon Treaty have actually said that the Lisbon Treaty will not affect these World Trade talks and that the Lisbon Treaty will basically has nothing to do with it. Do you feel that this is true, or do you feel that there is a sort of an enshrinement in the Lisbon Treaty to progressively allow for these trade restrictions to be removed?
Well, I actually questioned Peter Mandelson yesterday, both in committee, because I'm a delegate to the World Trade, but also outside the committee. I personally questioned him about Ireland's position and the quote-unquote veto. And the position is that right now, there's no question but the deal that is on the table. I mean, it's not on the table yet, but the deal that is being brought to the table will seriously disadvantage Irish agriculture and would, the logic of it is the end of the beef industry. And, you say, oh, that sounds very alarmist, but look, the last deal ended the sugar industry, our most profitable tillage industry. In 1 week, the sugar industry went. So we have serious concerns over, there'll be no way, because for an Irish farmer to raise beef, if this deal goes ahead, it means they'll have to do it as a charity because it'll cost them more to raise beef than they will get. I won't go into the technicalities around steaks as opposed to mince, etc. But take it from me, it'll be the end of which then puts a question over dairy and butter and everything else. But what is the situation for Ireland? We have handed over our negotiating power to the EU already. That's already been done. So now, but we still have a veto. We do have a veto. It's not a veto that a government would ever want to use, but we still have a veto now. But what happens in Lisbon is we create a new legal entity called the EU, which is empowered to make not just to speak for 27 nations, but to make treaties in and of itself as an international player. So this is going to affect the world trade in the future. In who makes the deal? Is it the EU on behalf of 27, or is it the EU on behalf of itself? And that's going to be the critical area. Now already we have a problem, and this goes back to the democratic deficit in Europe. It's already a problem that the EU is contemplating a deal that is going to destroy Irish agriculture. And there's nothing farmers can do. That's a problem. Where did we get to a stage where the citizen could not influence the decision? That's because there's been a cutoff on democracy. And let's compare that. The U.S. right now, the U.S. Congress is passing a $300 billion farm support bill. And why does that happen in the U.S.? Because the people elect the congressmen, and the congressmen make the legislation. Our people elect their TDs. TDs only do 20% of the laws now, and it'll be less under Lisbon. They elect their MEPs, and all we can do is amend laws. And those amendments only stick if the Council and Commission want them to stick. So because there's a disconnect between the people through the ballot box to the laws, we can't get a 300 support law in Europe. All we can get is Peter Mandelson basically giving away European farming to whoever will give him more concessions in intellectual property and financial services and things.
Okay, and I suppose the final major issue that I just want to touch on.
So maybe I should just have said that, so for farmers, they're absolutely right to vote no to Lisbon. But it may not be just to get a veto. They should vote no to Lisbon because European policy may end their way of life, their ability to produce farm goods. And that's a problem. And they, as not just in their own self-interest, in their income, etc., but they more than anybody understand food security. And we have serious food security issue in Europe. There's a European Commission report that they paid the experts to put together called, no, if I can get the name, but it's Rural Europe or Rural whatever, Foresight Report 2025. And they're saying that if Europe continues as they're doing now, with the policies they're doing, the policies that they put to implement along the line, that we will have major food shortages in 2025 in Europe with no ability to turn it around because farming has such a long lead in.
Serious consequences we're talking about.
Serious consequences for everybody, urban dwellers as well as rural.